The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between. Elevate your practice with PCC. 40 plus years of trust and award-winning EHR, seamless operations, and financial stability. Use practice analytics to regain control of your practice and learn to maximize billing and reimbursement. When you start with PCC, you get more than an EHR. As an active participant in the pediatric community, we're proud to offer a lively peer community of PCC EHR users, a free annual users conference, and new resources that empower you to prioritize your patients. Learn more at pcc.com. Again, pcc.com. Pediatric Executive Development System, or PEDS, is a dynamic, transformative program designed to accelerate the growth and development of the leaders in the field of pediatric entrepreneurship. PEDS takes a hands-on approach to problem solving, addressing real-time situations within your organization. More than a theoretical course, it is a practical platform that accelerates learning. Look at our link on the show notes for more information. Good morning, George. It's Tuesday morning again, and we have a dear guest, a good friend of ours, and somebody that is extremely successful out there in Greece, New York.
Yes, we have. Welcome, Dr. Kathleen Wania from Greece, New York. And her topic today is going to be accelerating the growth of your practice, a pediatrician success story. I love to hear these stories because when I see young generation physicians successful, it makes me real happy because I know that pediatric independent practice is still alive and kicking. So take it away.
Kathleen. Hello, Kathleen. It's a pleasure to see you again. How are you?
I'm great.
Kathleen, remind us when you started your practice.
So I started my practice July of 2021. This came after an idea that I had that we could do something different in pediatrics or something different in our area.
And that was right in the middle of the pandemic. And so basically your first year, you had no revenue.
Yes, the first year we had minimal revenue, yes.
And from the beginning of the practice, which is basically 2 years old,
Yep.
What has happened to your revenue?
So our revenue, again, we started July 2021, so there was only a few months left in that year or half of the year left, but we have increased our revenue tenfold since we opened first year.
Wow. What an amazing story, right? Yeah. Tenfold, but independent pediatric practices are dead. I wonder how many health systems would die to have a Kathleen Wania running their pediatric section. And but it hasn't all been parties and cocktail parties and fun, right? We've had some hiccups along the way.
Yes. Again, I'm very excited that we were able to accomplish so much, but yes, there was many times where I needed help or I needed to figure things out on my own when I was on my own.
And then the business people like George, the MBAs, will tell you every failure is an opportunity to learn. We don't think like that as doctors.
No,
well, if you think about it, even Elon Musk with SpaceX, he blows up rockets, and instead of being upset that the rocket blew up, he says we learn from our mistakes and we make another rocket.
Yes.
That's business.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, but it's hard. You can't say, "Oh, I saw 200 patients last week. 199 survived and one's dead. I learned from the mistake." It's a mind.
Yeah, but I think Kathleen has the medicine pretty well controlled.
Yeah, but
that's a little tricky.
That's why it's hard for pediatricians and physicians, because we don't want to make any mistakes in the exam room, and the business world is very different. Anyhow, in 2022, you had a big learning experience regarding your RCM, or revenue cycle management. What happened then?
So it was very early in 2022. Again, when you start, you don't know what you don't know, and you try to learn quickly as you go. we had been having these monthly RCM meetings and everyone kept telling me, yep, we're good. Everything looks great. I didn't really know what we were going over or what it meant. And so I was just listening to what they had said. And then I realized in early 2022 that my revenue was down, but we were seeing more patients. And so I started to look into it and realized that many of our claims had not been paid, including all of our COVID vaccines that we had given. And I went to the RCM team to ask and didn't get answers that I was happy with. So I had to ultimately leave that RCM team before I had no more money left.
So you have what I call the worst scenario, right? You're driving the car down the highway and the car stops because there's no gas in the tank.
Mhm.
That's what happened. And what lessons did you learn from that? What I say is that's why we have a dashboard. You know what the tank is full or not with gas and how many miles you've traveled in this trip. And
Yes.
but at that point, you didn't have a dashboard and you didn't even know what key performance indicators to look for to start asking questions as a business leader.
No, I did not.
Now, but
So
at
I-
the
No.
meetings, were you intimately involved with the meetings, or was your office manager involved? And they said to you that everything's okay, don't worry about it, go in the room.
I was in the meetings, but really what they were telling me was that my first pass rate was 98%. And they
Mhm.
were speaking about it in a way that sounded like everything was 98%, which is incorrect. We were getting
Right,
many
right.
denials. It made it to the clearinghouse, and that's what they were telling me was great. And that's obviously, we know now that's just part of RCM.
Right. I've learned over the years that if you do inside billing within your own practice, your practice is intimate into the process. They know what's going on a day-to-day basis. Our worst year historically in our practice of 60 years was when we outsourced the billing. Because
Yeah, so we
I would attend the meetings and it would say, don't worry, doc, everything's good, everything's great, everything's hunky-dory all
So
the time.
I'm going to have to push back against that, George.
Yeah.
Um, I think it depends what you want to be. I
Mhm.
can do my own billing if I want to and see less patients. That's
Mhm.
okay. That's a choice I can make as a solo practitioner.
Mhm.
Even if I had a 5-person group, I could do the billing for the group and see less patients. That's a choice we can make as a partnership. I think at the level that Dr. Wania is at, she is, you can call her the CEO, the president, the managing partner of this very fast growing group. She doesn't want to be doing the billing. She wants to know what to look for
Mm.
to know that her team's accountable. Now, you can hire Susan Zerota to do your billing. She will kick your pants off because they are so good at it. I would put up your practice, Dr. Wania's practice, literally anybody's practice in the country against Dr. Zerota's billing team. They are a machine that are down to 10 days in AR. Few people can compete with that. And that's outsourcing your billing. But she's got the system that dashboards the people in the process. Now you can replicate that in your office, and that's what Dr. Wania has done. But
Right.
what she was looking for as the managing partner, the CEO, is to find what does she look at top level to drive her team to success. And she didn't know that when she first started. Does that summarize it, Kathleen?
Well, yeah, but I think I had the opportunity because we had this problem, like George said, a problem is an opportunity. We had to take in the billing very quickly ourselves to make sure we did not run out of money. So we did our own billing for 4 to 5 months. So we learned the nitty gritty of what it means to bill. And then we found a company that we felt like could do what we needed. And we came to them with the information of this is what we need from you. And are you going to be able to provide that to us? So I came into hiring a billing company with much more knowledge because we had to do it ourselves for 5 months.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's like any other question of leadership is knowing what you want to achieve and then driving that through to the process and the right people and success. And if you don't know what you want to achieve, it's difficult to lead a team. And I think that was the first problem with the first company, right?
Yes, yes. I knew when I started our practice that I knew what I wanted the vision to look like on the medical portion. And that was very easy and came very naturally to know what we needed to do and to carry that through. But then, yes, the billing and the business side did not come naturally. It was things I had to learn.
And then you would think that these are developmental stages. Once you learn how to walk and once you're potty trained, it doesn't happen again. But that's not the case. In 2023, when you were part of the Pete's Dash, you had another billing incident. What happened then?
So that was, again, a very random error that occurred. But we noticed that our AR had jumped, and it took us a very short time. Instead of months to figure out, it took us about 2 weeks to figure out that my healthcare account at the clearinghouse was just deleted very randomly and by mistake.
And the difference was that this time the car didn't run out of gas because your gas gauge set low and you were able to take action to rectify it. And the money was always there.
Yes, because I knew what to look for. So when you know what to look for and you look at that every week and then something seems off, you say, hey, why is that this way? And we initially looked into it the first week, and I was told that it's just that the electronic remittance didn't come in. But then when the bank deposits stopped coming in, that's when we knew that we had a big problem. But we were able to fix it within 2 weeks, and not lose any money.
And not lose a lot of sleep.
No, I lost a little bit, but.
Now, when you were starting out, you did what smart people do. You talked to some business consultants that are very good in the industry, and they came and they did some spreadsheets and showed you where the areas of improvement were in your practice. What actions did you take from that spreadsheet?
So I was very fortunate to get advice from many people that are consultants in this field. But again, I was working alone. And so I was given information of, if you do these two, things will dramatically improve. But because I was by myself and I didn't know how to keep myself accountable, I didn't know how to execute, and I was busy seeing many patients per day, got put on the list of things that I had to do, which never got finished. So I knew I had to take action, but I didn't take action because I didn't know how, and I didn't have anybody to guide me or keep me accountable for making those changes.
Now, you're also very much a people person, very kind, but you're not a spreadsheet person.
No, I'm not a spreadsheet person at all.
So what you need is what a CEO needs or a managing partner needs. That you need a visual interface that shows you the numbers, the key numbers, and then all the data underlying it. You don't need to see it. You don't want to see it. It just takes a lot of time for you to understand it.
No, it just gets overwhelming, and I then don't take the time to do it.
And that's true of most business leaders. They're busy. And when it's pediatrics, you make money when you see patients. So if you're spending a lot of time going through reams of spreadsheets, that's just not very well. That's not a good use of your time. No, you want to see what's the most important thing and then move on. You also hired, and then you paid for this one, a consultant to help you set up the practice. And it was quite a bit of money. And when you joined the Pete's Dash, we found some problems with the way your fee schedule was set up, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And so what lessons did you learn from that? Remember, when we put up your information on the dashboard,
yes,
we found out that you were charging a certain amount for some vaccines that the insurance company was paying exactly what you were charging.
Yes. So I think it goes back to you don't know what you don't know. So when we initially set up, I trusted somebody told me, here, this looks like a good fee schedule. And I said, sure. And I didn't know any better, and I didn't look into it myself. So now I know that I need to be looking into my fee schedules and analyzing what it costs me to acquire something, what the insurances pay, and if I'm charging below what an insurance company is willing to pay, or if an insurance company is paying me exactly what I charge, then I likely am undercharging that fee schedule, and I need to increase my my prices.
You have to go by trust, but verify.
Yes.
A lot of physicians, when they go into business and things, they get other people and they trust. And they hope that their trust will continue and that the person does a good job. So, like, you cannot get involved in the nitty-gritty minutia of everything. Otherwise, you're going to have burnout.
Mm-hmm.
You should trust your people, but every now and again, verify what they do.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have systems to verify them, which is what the dashboard does. Is it's again a system to verify all of this. It's not just me looking at everything one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that the job of a consultant is very difficult. But I think if I were to do a consultant, I would set up systems for people to follow more than tell them that here's your fee schedule. Because someone starting a practice, what they need is a system.
Yes.
How do I come up with a fee schedule? How often do I update my fee schedule? And to George's point, how do I verify that I've got the right fee schedule?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't put that on a piece of paper for people to implement, yeah, I can give you a fee schedule in about 30 seconds. I just use a calculator and put it at X% of Medicare fee schedule and give it to you, and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And charge you $500 for that. It's totally useless to you, a practice.
Yeah, what I've seen with consultants and lawyers and stuff these days is with the advent of technology and stuff, they have their process, their systems, their ideas. They put it down on a piece of paper and they do copy, cut, and paste. And here, go, read it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you 100 pages to read. Somebody needs to baby steps because you didn't go into business school. You went into medical school, and you need some of that back and forth, just like you did with questions for the USMLE. Talk it out, but they don't talk it out. They just throw it to you. And it's physicians' human nature to put it on Shrek's to-do list.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you never do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me. So if you join our mastermind, you would pay for 10 months worth of information what Kathleen paid for this one consultant, right? And you've gotten 10 months working with managing partner CEOs, presidents, whatever, founders, whatever you want to call it, the people that are making the decisions in pediatric practices and problem solving. I think that's a much better way to learn and a better way to spend your money.
Yes. Again, when you're just given information and there's just so much of it that you can't go through it all because there's no process to go through it all. You just trust that it's all okay. Or you just aren't involved and people are doing things for you sometimes with consultants. And so with the mastermind, that is not at all what the model is. And I think it's so much better because it gives you the ability to, number one, work with other people who are doing the same job that you are, but maybe at a different level or a different time in their life. So they have different skills and knowledge to bring to the table. And you're learning. So you're not just being given information, you're actually learning how to do this. How do I implement something? How do I look at what needs to be changed? How am I actually going to change that? And I have people that are going to help me and then that are going to keep me accountable to institute those changes and be able to do it on my own. So now I can do things on my own that I would have 2 years ago didn't even know. I didn't even know what they were.
Yeah. And it's fun. To some degree, it's fun.
Yeah.
Now, there are places for consultants, and you hired a consultant to help you become a certified medical home. And that has made a big difference. Why is that important in New York?
In New York, if you have a high population of patients with Medicaid, becoming a medical home is very helpful. But to become a medical home, it is mounds and mounds of paperwork and processes that you have to write out and reports that you have to run. And it is not something that I could have done and still seen patients. It's just the time it takes there's just too much time that it takes. It would take away from the revenue that you would generate by seeing patients.
What's interesting with the PCMH consultants, they should be giving you, here's a bunch of piece of paper, let's submit these paper and let's apply. But since it's medical and it's not business, they have you, the physician, fill out the paperwork. So they just take the paper that you wrote, copy, cut, and paste it, and put it into the portal. So it has to be done by a physician because it's medical.
Yes. So it's a more collaborative consultant than a consultant that just gives you information. It's dialogue, but then they do the things that take all the time, writing things up, putting things in certain places that all are required to become a medical home.
Yeah, very complicated.
They're like doing all the clicking.
Yes.
And they're like a scribe. You're telling them, this is what I'm doing, this is the plan. And they're putting that all onto paper in the way that it works so you can get certified. Because that has an impact on your revenue if you're in New York. That doesn't apply to every state, but in New York it does. So that's a great case study of how a genius leader like Dr. Wania uses a consultant to get things done properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want people in the audience to think that I don't like consultants. It's that if you're the leader of a group and you hire somebody to be a consultant, is like when you hire an employee, you need to tell them what you want done, what the time frame is, and what you're going to pay, and what you're going to measure to hold them accountable. That's the first step. And there are times where the consultant, as Dr. Wania is mentioning, makes a huge difference because they've done this process multiple times and they're just able to get it done, and it has a great impact on your practice. Dr. Wania, let's talk a little bit about my favorite subject, key practice indicators or KPIs. You have become an expert in this field lately, and the first one I like to look at in any practice, and as I was looking at your dashboard today, this changed a little bit this morning. The first one I always look is days in account receivables, or what I call DAR. What's your practice on DAR right now?
Can you rephrase the question?
How
do we keep our AR as low as we do?
No. So your days in AR, remember when you first started, they were in your 50s, high 50s?
Oh, yes.
And for people that don't know what days in AR means, that how much time it's taking a business to recover the money that they built for.
Yes.
And so when you started, you were in your 50s in the first 2022. Then you've made a lot of improvements. And as of this morning, when I uploaded your data, now you're competing with Susan Zerota. Your days in AR are 10. How do you achieve that? What do you do to make that happen with that phenomenal growth that you have?
Yeah. So again, this comes back to, what we do in the mastermind group is we learn what things are, we understand what they are, and then we say, what do we need to do to make this better? And you go and implement it in your day-to-day practice, and you come back and look back and see, okay, is what I did affecting this? So what we do is we have systems. We have a scribe that helps us write our notes, so we don't have to get behind on writing our notes. So our notes are finished and completed. We then, when our notes are completed, we have billed the CPT codes, and we have a coder that follows us within 24 hours to check all the coding and have everything ready to bill. And our billers are right behind that person, usually the same day, sending out the claims. So we have a very quick turnaround time of all of our claims from the day getting out, usually within 2 days.
And you also do auto posting.
Yes.
So everything comes in electronically and the computer posted in the right account.
Yes. So everything is electronic. So everything comes in electronically, and she can easily post those. Again, when they come in, they're usually posted the same day.
So all that speeds up your cash flow. So right now you see a patient, and next week you're getting paid for that visit. That's really what the number means.
Yes.
And that's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Then the net receivable ratio, for those of you who haven't listened to the show before, that is the amount that your practice is actually owed. So if you bill for $1 million and your adjustments are $500,000 for a contract, you should be getting $500,000. And your practice is at 99% of that. What is one of those strategies that you use for the people that have high deductibles in order to get that money right up front.
Mm-hmm. So the strategy that we use based on the area that we are in, so the area that we are in, many families either aren't able to or would not like to put their credit card on file or to save that information. So we just collect the deductible of the minimum that we would charge upfront when they arrive for the appointment. And then we inform them that anything else, any extra charges will then be billed to them. So that allows us to collect the majority of the money that we are owed right on the day of service.
And then you also measure your newborns. And in November, you had 50 newborns, which is a phenomenal number for a practice of basically 2 clinicians.
Yes.
And your panel has grown by 25% just this year.
Mm-hmm.
And half of that has been newborns.
Yep.
And when we started talking, I channeled my best Dan fighting that I could and talked about the importance of Google My Business. Everything's hyperlocal. What has Marianne in your office done for your Google My Business ratings?
So our front staff will send patients text messages the day of after their appointment. So after they leave the office that day or the day after, within 24 hours, a text message asking them if they've enjoyed their visit to give us a review. So that's been able to increase our Google reviews.
So you're now, as of this morning, at 58 5 stars. They're all 5 stars.
I think there's 1 4-star.
I didn't find it.
It might be at the bottom. There's 1.
I got diluted by 5 stars. So
yes.
That's a phenomenal lead indicator, because when people are thinking about where they're going to go for their pediatrician, they Google pediatrician near me or best pediatrician near me, and Google shows you that ranking and puts the people with the most 5 stars at the top, and then all the other practices. And
Yep.
you've seen the fruits of that labor of asking, because if you don't ask, you're not going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's phenomenal. And not only are you growing fast, but you're growing the right way, which is very nice.
And then our office manager also, when we get new patients, she asks how they found us, so that she can have that feedback of, did they find us on Google? And many of them do.
Yeah,
they do.
Many of the patients that are transferring from out of town find us on Google. Otherwise, locally, it's word of mouth.
experience has it with Google for me is the people will go out of their way if they have a bad experience with you. And it's usually because they didn't get what they wanted. It's most of the time, like 98% of the time, it's a money thing. They owe money for whatever reason. And then they'll go out of their way to write a big discourse about how terrible you are. But if you ask, even that terrible one, like your 4-star one, gets diluted by all the 5 stars. And then people will read it and they'll say, oh, everybody's saying that she's really wonderful. This lady owes money and that's why she's upset. So it must be discounted.
Mm-hmm.
There's always crazy people.
Oh, but they go out of their way to write negative. Look at
yes, of course. Angry people are
Yeah.
angry, crazy people have time to do stuff like this.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But the truth is, I think most people that are somewhat centered, most days are centered. I don't have time to write a bad review. I just don't have time. You really have to go way out of your way to provide such service that makes me so upset that I will give you a 1 star, take a picture and put it up. So I think people know, and people know that people are unreasonable. If you bring me your child to the office today and you want me to clear him for sports, and he says he's passed out while he's running, and I said, you can't be cleared. You have to see a cardiologist. But practice started yesterday. I'm not going to be responsible for your son running the basketball court and having sudden death.
Yeah.
But it's
I think
nothing.
when there's
But, you know,
outliers, people can tell.
Yeah.
I can be unreasonable, but sometimes people want me to take the shortcut. And when I don't take the shortcut, then they get angry and they blame me for not taking the shortcut. And I think people recognize that. We all know when basketball starts, take the kid in 2 weeks before and get the school physical done.
Mhm.
But I think people recognize it. I think it's been out long enough. But I do think that keeping out the Google My Business up to date and having those stars grow does make a difference in your ranking. And so when people are looking for you, they find you easier.
Yes.
Um, Dr. Wania, where do you get the data that has helped you manage and grow the practice?
From the dashboard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if anyone, it's hard to speak about it because nobody can see it right now while they're watching this. So it's hard to explain something that is powerful and so helpful without demonstrating it, I think.
But isn't this data already living in your computer system, in your billing system, your EHR system? It's
It is,
there.
but it's there, but it's in 10 different reports that I have to run each. Even if I had my office manager run the reports, I still have to look at these lines and lines of reports 10 different times to get the few answers that I want to see
Right.
quickly. And so this just does it. When you have a system, I don't even run the reports, my office manager runs them. They get put into the dashboard, and then a minute later, we have all of the information that we can talk about in real time without having to go to 10 different spreadsheets to look at them.
Yeah. The one thing that I learned, Herb, the one thing that I learned when I did my MBA was there was a CEO, I forget who he was. It was a lesson that he would walk around to all the departments every week and just walk into there and say, I need you to tell me what is it that I need to know that I don't know.
Yeah.
That was
So,
enlightening to me.
yeah, absolutely. And then this is because I'm a pediatrician, right? So I'm obsessive compulsive.
A little.
And I'm constantly looking for variance. Anything that doesn't look like it's supposed to look means there's a problem.
Mhm.
And I tell pediatricians this all the time. You should have no problem with data. You should own data because we've been doing data for 50 years and it's
Mhm.
called the growth curve.
Mhm.
When people tell me, what is my baby weight? I don't know because I don't care. I look at the growth chart.
Mhm.
If the child is trending in the same percentile for head, circumference, weight, and height, whatever they weigh is what they're supposed to weigh. Now, you give me in what Kathleen is saying in the old days before she was born, and we were practicing, George, you looked at the chart and it said, kid's 20 pounds. Oh, I don't know what that means. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? But even then, we had the growth curves, remember? And the nurses had to do the ruler and go the month and make the little dot until I looked at that little thing that the AAP made, the growth curve. I didn't know what that 20 pounds meant. And that's what a dashboard is, the growth curve for your practice.
Mhm.
You just open up one page and you know whether the child's growing right or not.
Yeah.
And
I didn't
it
think about
doesn't take
that.
much work because you know when you see a teenager, I see a teenager, Dr. Wani sees a teenager, she's female and she's fallen off the growth curve. Well, there's a problem.
Mhm.
She might have a GI problem, an immune problem. She may be depressed. But now I got to figure out why she was at the 50th percentile and she did this. Whoops, off the
Mhm.
curve.
Yeah.
And that is the dashboard every pediatrician knows.
Yeah.
And we've been using it for 50 years.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people unfortunately use the key performance indicator of the bank account. As long as there's money in the bank, we're doing good. And
Yep.
then there's no money in the bank. Oops.
Well, there's either no money in the bank or you could have had more in the bank than you
Yeah,
didn't know.
I always tell my associates and partners at the office that if there's no money in the bank, your problem started about 9 months ago,
Mhm.
Yes.
not yesterday.
Mhm.
But we don't want to do like Dr. Wanya's experience in 2022 when the money ran out of the bank.
Mhm.
You
Uh-huh.
want to catch it way before. And she said something really important just a second ago.
Uh-huh.
How much money are you losing because you don't know how much should be coming in?
Mhm.
Right.
So even though there's money in the bank, you might be losing tons of money that you worked hard for.
Mhm.
And that is just as egregious as running out of money.
Correct.
And that's where this is the only conspiracy theory that I will actually entertain. That is where the insurance companies do take advantage of doctors. They know most doctors aren't watching. If there's a little mistake that's 2, 3, 4% of a huge practice revenue, nobody notices.
Mhm.
And I don't think they do it on purpose. They're just so big. They're sending so much money out. 2, 3, 4% in a practice that brings $50 million. Everybody's getting paid. Everybody's happy. Nobody's going to care. But you look for opportunities to make sure you're getting paid for all the work you're doing. And that's just as important as not running out of money.
Mhm.
And Dr. Wania, you had the opportunity to use the Peds Dash in one of your passions, which is advocacy for access for all children in Rochester. How did that dashboard help you? And how does helping the state of New York tackle the Medicaid inequity?
Yeah. So it allowed me to really demonstrate with data and numbers how big of a gap there is in the way that we get paid with Medicaid compared to Medicare, and to show how it's hard when you're explaining something, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, it's pretty bad. But when you sit somebody down and really show them how bad it is, and you can compare it to either commercial plans or to Medicare, and they can really see the difference, it makes them more aware, and it helps them to listen and then to bring that information on to the people that need to hear it. So I had the opportunity to show this dashboard to members in the community who are very active in advocating for changes in New York State Medicaid, who are able to meet with the New York State Medicaid director. So I was able to meet with them before their meeting, show them the dashboard, and then they brought that information to their meeting with the New York State Medicaid director.
Wow. Big impact.
Mm-hmm.
Big impact.
Yep. And we're hopeful that is going to spark the change that is coming.
Hopefully, because there's a lot of Medicaid in pediatrics. And too
Yeah.
many practices are going under because they can't live on $40 office visits. Yeah,
No.
it's not possible. It's just not, there's no, I guess, it's not possible.
Yes. But
Yeah.
again,
Even
saying that in a meeting versus showing somebody the numbers and saying this is why it's not possible, then they really see it.
yeah. And the math for, I know most of our audience are pediatricians, practicing pediatricians, they understand it. But for those of you who are not, if you get paid $65 a visit, which is what Medicaid pays for a visit in Virginia, $45 of that, 65 go to your overhead. And you're left for $20 for the clinician. That means you have to see 5 patients an hour just to make a salary that almost pays your student debt. And seeing 5 patients an hour is not something that you can do consistently every day for 4 days a week or 5 days a week. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless because of the overhead, and the overhead continues to rise until we are paid properly for the services we're providing, there really is no DEI or equity in access for people that are at risk. They don't have access to care. And I know that's a bitter pill to swallow for some people, but having a Medicaid card does not mean you have access to care.
Mm-hmm.
Emergency room. You have access in the emergency room.
Yeah, but is that the best care for a child?
No.
So that we have to be honest. Having a Medicaid card does not give a child access to care. And we need to change that.
But they do have the federally qualified health centers that close at 4:00 and don't see patients in the hospital, and they don't work on weekends, and they don't take call.
And they lose money.
Yet they have special deals.
Yeah, they get $200 a patient and they still lose money.
Yeah.
So that's a mess. But at least Dr. Wania was able to use the dashboard to drive one of her passions, which is access for every child in Rochester to a medical home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being heard at the top levels of the state of New York. And I'm very happy for her, but I'm also very happy for the work that we have done, George, that people can use this tool to change the world.
Yep.
Dr. Wania, in some of the masterminds, we have some special guests like Dr. Cressley and Dr. Sirota. How has that insight from these genius pediatricians helped you in your own life, only not only as a business owner, founder, CEO, but also as a woman pediatrician?
Mhm. I think that's hard to answer because it's so immeasurable. I don't know anywhere else where you would have Susan Sirota join a Zoom meeting with just a handful of people and give you feedback specifically on how you are running your practice. I mean, to have somebody that is that knowledgeable and that good at what they do, to be able to help you individually as a person is just huge. And then, of course, Dr. Cressley is amazing, and I can't wait to see what she's going to be doing next. But it's just, there is nowhere else where that can happen. There's nowhere else where I've experienced that except in this mastermind group.
Yeah, it's really neat when they come on board, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To just
So
watch how they think through the problem and how they see other things that you're it's staring at the screen and they're like, oh wait, what's this? Why don't you do this?
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like meeting your favorite rock star, right? Or
Yeah.
Taylor Swift or something.
Yes, but it's not just the lecture that you attend. So I've attended lectures by all of them,
A lot of
and
people.
it's not the same. So now I don't just get to hear what they say, but this is like true feedback. So that goes back to that idea of we are really interacting in this mastermind group. It's not just, you're not being talked at, you're really interacting and working as a team and troubleshooting. And that is where you gain knowledge from each other.
Yeah. It's hands-on approach. I like what you said. You're not being talked at. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking with. And I'm observing this with my medical students. They come to the office, they're examining, they're talking, they're using the computer, they're doing things, they're doing procedures, tests. I'm not lecturing to them. This is what you
Mm-hmm.
should do, blah, 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 blah. It gets boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's hands-on. So I think that's what Mastermind does. It gives you a hands-on approach. Sure.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy, George,
Yeah.
because that's how we learn. See
Yeah.
one, do one, teach one.
Yeah. Let's
But
walk and talk.
yes, but I remember sitting in the anatomy class and I'm not good at raw memorization
Mhm.
and saying, why on God's earth do I care about all these bones? They mean nothing to me until you have to examine a kid's knee.
Mm-hmm.
Then you remember what all the ligaments are
Right.
and all the structures on the knee are because it's real. And it's you and a peds orthopedic surgeon in the room, and he's teaching you how to test for the different ligaments on the knee.
Right.
And everything becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is what Dr. Wania is saying, right?
Right.
Everything becomes real when it's a real example. It's not just someone talking down to you about here's what you should be doing.
Right. And I also observe this with the students when we do medical USMLE questions with them. It's not just root memorization for them, which a lot of them do. It's looking at the question, dissecting the question, seeing what word is in the question that's leading you to this answer and not that answer. And then if you see a question that you saw in an examination room, it's like a home run for these kids. Every case is a board question, I always say. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all hands-on approach. It's like mastermind for medical students.
Mm-hmm.
That's how adults learn.
Yeah. But
They're
today,
learning the back
learning
and
through
forth
videos.
conversation.
They're learning through videos. That's the problem. And people talking at them.
Yeah, no, that's why medicine sends you out into clinics. So you can learn from the discussion and seeing how it's done. And that's really how adults learn.
Yeah. I think when you then open your own practice, you're not maybe aware that you're going to be doing this on your own unless you have a business partner, which again, I do not within my practice. When you open this practice, you have all these ideas of how things are going to look, and then you get into it and then you're all alone and you don't really then know what to do now that you're all alone. So I think, again, this goes back to that, is that this group allows you to not be alone, even though you're managing your own practice. you have the ability to work with other people who are doing similar things that you are.
I guess that's the beauty of, in my practice, I have partners. So I have an idea or a problem. I bounce it off of one, I bounce it off of another. And out of 4 smart people, we're going to get a good answer. When you're in an independent practice, you're the only one with the good answer, and it could be wrong. So it becomes the mastermind. It becomes like a soundboard where you can bounce questions off and say, that's a good idea. You should, but maybe you should do this twist to that idea.
I have 2 thoughts about this. So there's some things your practice, George, has benefited from the mastermind. Even though you do have very smart partners and you're very talented. But sometimes it's just someone that thinks completely different can see something that people don't see. And it's a different perspective. The person's standing in a different point and they can see something different that can be improved. The other thing is, I think the beauty of a mastermind, and Chip talks about this a lot. He says, get out of your office and visit your colleagues because you can always learn.
Right.
This allows you to get out of your office and visit your colleagues without having to do the trip.
Yep.
And the other thing that I like about the mastermind, because I'm so OCD, is this is like the best of all worlds. You're dating, but you don't have to get married to each other. So there's no commingling of money and arguments. No, this is Dr. Wania's practice. It's her money. She does it as she wants to. She can take my advice or she can ignore my advice. And that's okay because we're not married. And that allows you to have, as you're rapidly growing, allows you to have the partners that RBK has and the deep knowledge base that those people have without the entanglements of partnership until you find the right person to be a partner with.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful. That's a very powerful thing.
Hence, our thing was successful. The culture was established in 58, but we always mentored the next generation. And we're mentoring even now the next generation of physicians. We try to mentor because there's no way, just because you got your MD, doesn't mean you know business. I was insulted once by a consultant, and they said to me, do you know what MD means? Money dumb.
Yeah,
that's
no,
pretty
exactly
bad. That's what they think of us. That's pretty bad. And then
isn't he married to a pediatrician?
I don't know, but I took it to heart. So that's what made me get the MBA. And I went back. Do you know what MD with an MBA means? You're not an MD. But whatever, petty stuff.
Now, Dr. Wania, do you think the dashboard without the podcast and the mastermind and their relationships would be as helpful?
No, I think it's a tool, but I don't think it's a tool, but it wouldn't be as helpful because, again, it goes back to, I can read that dashboard every week and say, oh, that doesn't look so good, but all right, I'll get to it in a few weeks and put it on my list of things to address what that problem is. And then you get overwhelmed with the week and then you never get to it. So meeting with a group every week, if we see something that is deviating from what it has been on the dashboard, in that time that you've already committed to, we work through what is going on, what do I need to do? You have people to talk to you about what could be the problem and how can I fix it? And then next week, they're going to be asking, how did that go last week? And you're going to be held accountable to report back on it, which it's not like a threatening thing. It's that someone else is going to be waiting to hear what's going on. So it gives you that motivation to act on things immediately.
Great. And George, you have been this for a long time, right? With a super group that is hard to change. You call it the Titanic. Why do you find value in the system after all you already have an MBA and the experience?
Because I'm not the smartest guy in the room. There's always somebody smarter that has a better idea. And the truth of the matter is, as you say, I'm like a grasshopper. I do 15 things at the same time. So I need somebody to pull me in to say, hey, sit down and look at this is a problem. Fix it.
And You've used other dashboards, right? What is the magic sauce in this dashboard that's different from the other dashboards you used?
I've seen dashboards developed from scratch many years ago. The dashboard concept is not a new concept. It's been around for ages. But I think the development of having everything like your car dashboard there for you to see what's important with the speedometers and the things, and it tells you when you're going to crash and when you're going to have a problem, and it's like sensors in a car. You could drive the car without sensors and maybe you won't crash, but if you're backing up and you're not looking, you're definitely going to crash. I think that helps. And analyzing information, because dashboards are generally sophisticated spreadsheets, bigger spreadsheets, or more colorful, picturesque spreadsheets. Talking about it, I think, is important. I think talking to somebody, I had asked you, Herb, I said, Herb, I need you to, for our office, to look and obsess over the data and tell me what is it that I don't know so I can fix it. Because I can fix things, but if I don't know how to fix it, and I don't have time to obsess over it.
And then even in big established practices, the mastermind has had some powerful results, right?
Correct.
There's one practice that has improved their fee for service revenue by about 40%, which is a huge win for them. We have a very big practice that went from days in account receivables from 78 to 38, which is a huge improvement. It's not 10 yet, but we're on the way there. And then we had another practice who, during the partner buyout, fixed the account receivables and saved about $500,000.
And I bet you nobody knew what they didn't know.
No, but the information was all there in their system.
It was
all
definitely
in their
there because it's all in
spreadsheets.
the system. But no, but like Kathleen said, who's going to run the reports? Who's going to look at? Who's going to analyze? Who's going to obsess over these things?
Yep. And so it takes two steps. One, presenting the data, obsessing over the data, which is really bringing insights into the data, and then the people that can execute the action step. Those three, if all those three don't align, it's a waste of time.
Correct.
And what, you have any other thoughts, Dr. Wania?
Again, I keep trying to go back to just the value of the dashboard plus the mastermind meeting every week, because without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would have been trudging through things still. This has accelerated my growth. Like, again, I can't even measure how many fold it has accelerated my growth in what I know and what I can accomplish. Whereas it would have been much harder. And I don't even know if I'd be where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Kathleen, before you opened up this practice, you worked for some other practice for many years. I would have thought, did you not learn this stuff in that office?
I was not allowed to learn about it. I asked about the business and I was told that wasn't my role.
Yeah. Hence, go back into the examining room and do what you do best. See the patients.
Yes.
Yeah, this should be mentoring and developing the next generation.
My previous practice had a different philosophy than your practice. And there's one sole owner and they're in charge of the business and everybody else sees patients.
I guess.
I'm not saying that's a good way to be, but people have different ways of being, and that's all right.
Yep.
What else, George?
I hope that we can share some information to people, help people, mentor people, guide people, because I think it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, we all become another cog in the machine of the big system or the private equity or whatever they're called these days. And then you get more physician burnout. I need happy people. I think the best thing I've ever heard from a physician was in a private practice. We hired this one physician. She built a huge practice on Long Island. She was bigger than us. And over the years, the next generation didn't come on. Maybe they didn't have the mentoring mentality, the culture. And then they started to get on in age a little bit and computers. So they sold out to a system, right? And she worked for a couple of years and she had ideas and they told her to sit down. It's pediatric, sit down, we'll take care. And then she left. And she's not ready to retire, really. She's only 67. And I was very touched when we had our holiday party the other day. She came up to me, gave me a huge hug, and said to me, George, I am so happy that you guys hired me. I am so happy at this place because this is the way independent practice should be, like family. Now, I don't think she needed the money really after all these years. So then I think that's why independent practice has to succeed, because we're doctors. We do the right thing all the time and we should be paid for it. And I don't know.
And we should enjoy it, like you said.
You should be fun. You should go to work to have fun.
Yes. So I would say to anybody that's out there, because I know there's many people that have their own independent private practice who are maybe struggling or feeling overwhelmed or feeling burned out or feeling exasperated by something that's going on in your office. I would say reach out. That's what I did. I reached out to George, and this is how I ended up in the mastermind group and using this dashboard. So I think people are afraid to reach out, but just start reaching out.
An interesting thing Chip once told me, Chip Hart, he says, an MD is not a guarantee for success in practice. Mm-hmm. All the MD does is it gives you a little bit of an advantage on the starting line. You start a little bit further up. The rest of the race, you have to continue. And there could be other people catching you from behind. So unfortunately, everybody thinks I did the MD. I went through medical school. I did the biochemistry and all that kind of stuff. So I am automatically entitled to success. Not going to happen. Hard work. Independent practice is hard work. Blood, sweat, and tears. Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
I think that's true of any business, right? That's what I said before. It's not like you reach a developmental milestone and that problem doesn't happen again. That's, I think, one of the frustrating things of owning a business, that there's always another problem to solve.
Yep.
And that's never going to end. That's why you own the business.
Yep.
But if you're employed by a large system, you don't have a seat at the table when you see the problem to get it solved. And that to me is worse. I'll take the aggravation of trying to solve the problem any day over not even being allowed in the room to say, this is the problem and could we do this to fix it? That's to me a lot more painful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't have the words to describe how enriching it's been to work with Dr. Wania for the last year, and how proud I am of her success. I think I want to see more pediatricians. I don't care if they're women or men or whatever they are, but that they're growing their practice and taking care of their community and are happy with their practice and they're making money and they're successful. It's just such a joy to see that happen. But I'm very proud of you. You've done a tremendous job over the last 2 years.
Yep, I think Dr. Wania started out as a Padawan, and now she's a Jedi Master. She's a Jedi Master. She's going to be on the council. Dr. Wania, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Any closing thoughts, Dr. Wania?
I just have to say thank you to both of you, because again, I think we make a great team in the mastermind. I think we all bring something different to the table, which is why it makes it so great. And so I just want to thank both of you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure and our honor to help you.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good day.
Pediatric Executive Development System, or PEDS, is a dynamic, transformative program designed to accelerate the growth and development of the leaders in the field of pediatric entrepreneurship. PEDS takes a hands-on approach to problem solving, addressing real-time situations within your organization. More than a theoretical course, it is a practical platform that accelerates learning. Look at our link on the show notes for more information. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of the Pediatric Lounge. On the show notes, you will find links to our co-host and other important notes, as well as a timetable of the topics discussed today. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a great review as it helps us greatly. In the meantime, we will see you next week. The Pediatric Lounge. The conversations are not intended as medical advice, and the opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest.